Why is NIO down so much? Is it because the Chinese government is also looking to crack down on the automotive field and maybe targeting NIO and will find some new regulations to make it harder for NIO to execute on their plans? Well, here's a little opinion piece of mine, so my quick opinion, whether or not this has anything to do with today's stock price. So as you can see today, it's down more than 10%, but well, pretty much what I'm looking at is all really deep down in the red. The Chinese stocks even more so, but also, for instance, here Tesla, which just had really good earnings. Actually, it's also down almost 4%, back to some support levels. And also, interestingly, Apple minus 2% and Nasdaq also around that. So there is certainly a bigger movement in the markets today, and well, the most volatile stocks certainly are getting hit more, and NIO is part of that group. But let's go back to the fundamentals and all of this crackdown talk. I made actually a couple of videos about this now, so if you haven't watched them, please go back to the history and look up the last, I think, around 3 videos where I talk about NIO, other sectors, Alibaba, Meituan, Tencent, and so on, and go into each of these sectors and talk about how I think they may get impacted by this. And so let me also talk about one more argument which I already posted to all of my patrons a couple of days ago, which has to do with a tweet or a Weibo post here in Chinese by one of the famous Chinese economists. So this tweet is by the former chief economist vice president level of Evergrande Group. So that's a big developer in China, and he is coming from Tsinghua University, so really big influence and well, quite a good knowledge of what's going on in China. And here he is tweeting basically, roughly translated, that there is a new general trend reducing excessive profits and monopolies in real estate, finance, education, and the internet that have caused a squeeze on people's livelihoods, right? So that's what we see right now in all of these new regulations and measurements, for instance, on Meituan famously, who now are being urged to adhere to the minimum wages and so on. But he also states, and this is important, the new goal is the development of manufacturing, hard technology, real economy, new energy, and capital markets. And so I would say this goes actually hand in hand in what kind of sector and in what kind of opportunities NIO is actually active in. And this actually gets even further supported today by the fact that here, breaking news, NIO signs a deal to facilitate sales of vehicles to China's central government agencies. So in the past, Chinese politicians and government officials mostly have been driving famously Audi cars. Usually if you saw a black Audi on the roads in China, that was oftentimes driven by one of the government officials. But now it seems that, at least in some aspects, they are also making the switch now, and instead of purchasing foreign cars here, they are possibly, at least some of them that are going to procure in the future will be coming from some of the local companies like NIO. And that is obviously a very clear supportive sign and signal here for NIO, and once again should be very much straight in line with this quote of the trends that are going on in the Chinese economy. And I think this trend and these fundamentals actually already got noticed by some of the investors. For instance, here SMIC, which is Chinese semiconductors company that is producing chips in China, in mainland China, is actually up significantly. And so I think investors are actually noticing these new trends, and they can separate things between sectors that are really being hurt, for instance in the housing market area, versus automotive manufacturing. And so I think, yes, there is some weakness in NIO and other Chinese stocks right now with all of the talk around this. But it is not what is now triggering this big sell-off right now. We would rather have to look a little bit towards the end of the week, where we have new announcements by the Fed, and possibly they may indicate tapering, so that might be bad for growth stocks in general, and that would be actually really bad for the markets in general. And even if this has some positive news towards the end of the week on this regard, still it looks like to me that some of the largest caps in the Nasdaq, for instance also Apple, that they have gone up 20 to 25%. And now we're going into the earnings season, and possibly we will see some profit taking in those names later on. So the big question is whether or not, if those big market caps and the indexes are actually correcting, whether or not this will have even more drag on names like Tesla or NIO and other growth names, for instance, and particularly also some of the Chinese stocks that have been beaten down already so much. So once again, it's impossible to time this, whether or not there is a bottom already here. It could be, but there is certainly also some more danger on the horizon there. So keep some dry powder if you want to add on some of these positions. But on the fundamentals, I would say, there is not an indication yet that, for instance, the Chinese government would be going after NIO. Quite the contrary, actually. So I hope this gives you at least my opinion on that. Additionally, thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next one.